Okay, today we're going to be learning about one-step integer equations using multiplication and division. Remember yesterday you learned how to solve equations using the inverse operations of addition subtraction. Today's the same because multiplication undoes division and division undoes multiplication. We will simply undo the equations to solve. So, if a variable has been multiplied by a non-zero number, you're going to divide both sides by that number. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the coefficient. If a variable has been divided by a number, multiply both sides by that number. Here's an example. Solve 3y is equal to 261. We're trying to find a value for y so that when multiplied by 3, the solution is 261. So we want to undo the multiplication. So by undoing the multiplication, we will divide both sides by 3. Okay, and to do that, one thing that this PowerPoint's not doing, use a fraction bar to show your division, okay? And then look why we canceled this out right here, because remember that makes a fancy form of 1, so we have 1y, and we can cancel those 3's. Then you actually do the division of 261 divided by 3, and the answer is 87. Then you're going to check your work. So if you find that y is equal to 87, you should be able to plug it into the original, substitute it in for y, and actually multiply 3 times 87. When you do that, check your work, use your calculator. What does 3 times 87 equal? If it equals 261, then you found the right solution. There's those division lines. All right. We need to talk about that multiplication property of -1. Sometimes you'll have a negative in front of a variable. Now remember that we know that means -1. Having a negative variable is not solving for the variable. We need the variable by itself without a negative. We need a positive variable. So if you look at it as -1w, you could divide both sides by -1. Okay, to get w by itself, which means that the 42 then becomes negative. You could check your solution, and the opposite of -42 is +42. So let's practice some. I will actually be solving these. So we look at the very first equation. We find the variable. It's on the left-hand side of the equal sign. If you want to use your line so that you remember that you have to do two things, one to each side of the equal sign to maintain equivalence, we want to look what's happening to the variable, -6 times x. We need to undo multiplying by -6. So we divide by -6. Use a fraction bar to show division. -6 divided by 6 is 1. It cancels. But we must do the same thing on the right. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So in this case we have x is equal to a +6. To double check our work, we would take -6 and substitute in a +6 for x, and that should equal a -36. When we do this math, we get a -36. It's supposed to equal -36, and we know that we did it right. Looking at the other problem, the other equation, b divided by -4. To undo dividing by -4, we multiply both sides by -4. These cancel out. Bring down the b. 12 times a -4 is going to be a -48. To check your work, substitute in -48. Divide that by -4. Do the math. It should equal 12, and it does. So this is just going to click through with the computer generated. Okay, we need to learn how to set up some word problems. How many packages of diapers can you buy with $40 if one package costs $8? And I know that many of you are thinking about dividing 40 by 8. That's how you would solve the problem, okay? But you need to take it a step further. if you're using division to solve it, what's the inverse of that? And that should be what your equation looks like. So your equation should look like multiplication. And so what are we needing? How many packages of diapers? So we need to find, say, a package of diapers. So D is equal to a package of diapers, sometimes identifying the variable. Okay. We know that showing multiplication with this 8 times D will equal our $40. Since we're using division to solve for D, we have set up the equation correctly. So D will be equal to $5. And remember to use your labels. Check your work. 8 times 5 has to equal 40 for this to be true. Since it is 40, we know that we did the right thing. Amanda and her best friend found some money in a field. They split the money evenly, each getting $24.28. How much money did they find? So in this case, we don't know the larger amount. We need to know this larger amount, but we know that if she split it with her and her best friend, that's 2 people are splitting the money. So you know that they each got $24.28. So if your mind and your way of solving this wants to take the $24.28 times 2, and you're using multiplication to solve it, your equation must show division. So this is going to move a little bit. M is going to be equal to, that'll be our variable we'll use. M will equal the money in the field, okay? And so M divided by 2 gives us our $24.28. So multiplying both sides by 2, this cancels. I'd like to see you showing that it cancels. M would be equal to 48.56, and again it's dollars. 48.56 for the dollars and cents. So you could substitute that back in. 48.56 divided by 2 must equal the $24.28. Take the time to do this because you'll find mistakes sometimes. So $24.28 is equal to $24.28. And when I say take the time to do it, I mean punch this part into your calculator to make sure that it equals this part, okay? And that's how you'll know you did it right. One thing also is the fact families. Remember we talked about if you knew that you needed to take 24.28 times 2 to solve it, right, to get what you would call M in this place, then let's rearrange these things so that you could have another equation, and we know that we could substitute division. So we could take M divided by 2 to equal the 24.28, or we could take M divided by 24.28 to equal the 2, and this one happens to make a little more sense in context of the problem, since this is the money that they got when they split it by 2. So this could be a way that you rearrange or write your equation. You know, maybe write it out as facts, as a fact problem, and then rearrange it to get the equation you need, because that's a very important step. All right, I want you to try these, so pause it and give it a try, and then you can continue playing and watch me work them out. In the first one, a box of pencils has, a box of pencils has 6 pencils inside. If Miguel has 24 pencils, how many boxes does he have? Let's get the pronoun right. So a box of pencil has 6 pencils inside, and we know that there's a total of 24 pencils. So what we don't know is how many pencils are in each box. Or we do know that a box of pencils has 6 pencils. We don't know how many boxes this child has. And so we want to set up the equation. We know that if there's 6 per box, right, we could say B is equal to the box of pencils. And we know that 6 in a box per box is equal to 24, right? 6 times however many boxes we have would equal 24. Dividing by 6 on both sides, okay, is going to give us 4 boxes of pencils. And then we do the checking. I'll change the color to make it a little easier since there's so much on this page. 6 times 4 needs to equal 24. It does, and we did it right. Also remember to give your unit or your label. I know that many of you are going to be able to solve these word problems very easily. Again, think about how you are solving them. If you know that you need to divide 24 by 6, work backwards. How do you undo division? Through multiplication. Multiplication is the problem if you're solving it with division. Let's look at the second one. Ricky and his 2 friends earned money doing chores. After splitting the money, they each got $7. How much money did they earn altogether? So what we have to realize is that we have Ricky and 2 friends, so we have 3 friends splitting money. Okay, that's important. A lot of kids immediately look for the numerical part of the word problem, and you have to read it in context. 3 friends are splitting money. So we don't know the total or the amount of money. Okay, that's the money they're splitting for the chores. But we know that it's being divided by 3 people evenly. So the money divided by 3 people evenly is going to equal $7. To undo dividing by 3, you multiply both sides by 3. So the amount of money they split is $21. Again, to be sure, check your answer. You can take 21 divided by 3, and it must equal 7. Since it does, you know that you are right. You are now to start working on the worksheet to practice the solving equations using multiplication and division, and setting up and solving the word problems. Make sure to show all your work and check all your work.